We predicted a giveaway budget today. We predicted it 6 months ago that this is what the government would do to try and get popularity back on their side. But they must think that people in this country are foolish because they've been taking taxes at exorbitant rates off of everyone in this country. And now they're saying they're giving it back, but they're not. Their VAT intake was up 10 billion euros. We announced that a month ago that their VAT intake was up. Everything that you're wearing here today, whether it is you're buying food, whatever you're buying across the country, clothes, footwear, you're renovating a house, it's all VAT tax. Now, I challenged Micheál Martin last week to say that they were a business and they started heckling to say that they weren't a business. They regulate for every business in this country. They collect income tax, PAYE, PRSI and VAT off of everyone in this country, and they say that they're not a business. Now, one thing that Pascal said today was that 33%, a third of the country, is employed through the industry sector. But he forgot to mention the other 66% of the people that are not represented on this cabinet, and they are the people from rural Ireland. They are the other 66% that are not represented. They are the farmers, they are the self-employed people, your coffee shops, your care assistants. These are all the people of the other 66%, but their cabinet is all one base. It's 82% city-based. And if you look at their budget today, the budget was not helpful for the likes of rural Ireland. They have already, Flowgas have already announced that they're going to put up the gas prices by 17%. The electricity is going up by 17% and their gas rate is going up by 23%. That was announced pre-budget. And they've announced all these small little tokenistic things. It's going to be swallowed up within the taxes that we're already giving back. And the only thing that's going to happen is we're going to be paying more taxes because they're just after creating another increase. Why haven't they regulated the gas companies? Why haven't they regulated the ESB companies like they've regulated every other business and person in this country? That's the question. Why are they not regulating them?
If the Rural Independent Group were in government, what is the number one difference between the budget that you guys would write compared to the budget that we currently have?
Well, first of all, the carbon tax shouldn't be put on. We opposed that back 18 months ago, and we still oppose it. We wouldn't be playing a three-card trick on the people by putting on all these taxes all year with the last 18 months. Ever before the mention of a war, and now today trying to recklessly throw away every penny we have in corporation tax and FDIs, being reckless because this continues, which it very well could, and the carbon tax is going to increase twice a year. That's enshrined in law, voted for by everybody in there, about 7 of us, and like we're spending money then trying to pay catch up. I mean, children wouldn't do that. Spend the money on all the sweets and they have no money for tomorrow. So it's good in spots and like the cure's sake. But I welcome the situation regarding childcare. I welcome situations regarding the respite grant and the carers grant. But I'm disappointed that the carers aren't looked after in an overall way much more stronger going forward, because these all are helpful and are necessary, beyond necessary, but they still won't get people over the winter. And I welcome the VAT situations extended until February as well. And there hasn't been any comment, I think, about increasing them then, but we'll have to see what happens. So you ask me what would we do differently? We would be more pragmatic with taxpayers' money, whoever pays the tax, whether it's foreign direct investment, and we'd have a plan for the HSE or disband the most useless monstrosity that ever was set up, because there's very little money today going in there and no plan as to how we're going to get any better. Free GP care for under, I know, was it 12s today? That's been announced in budgets previously. People can't access a GP. They're being charged for bloods and everything else. So what good is free GP care if you can't access it? As I said, there's no plan, and it's a knee-jerk reaction here by this government today to have a giveaway budget in the teeth of a crisis. And much of the crisis has been created by themselves. Every time today, I think the green agenda was mentioned 40, 50 times in that document. Everything is about the green agenda at the expense of rural Ireland, at the expense of many other areas of investment and indeed nurturing. And as I said, there's another cohort out there now. They're the kind of people who have children reared and still working in modest incomes. They got nothing out of this budget today.
Do you think Eamon Ryan will be happy with this budget?
I think Eamon Ryan will be very happy. He still continues to get his way in there, even though he only has 11 TDs in his party. 12 including himself in the Green Party. They seem to be running the show up here and certainly dictating as to what happens in terms of policy, in terms of a hysterical reaction to climate change. Minister Ryan seems to be getting his way the whole time, which is concerning. I can't believe that the rural government TDs are rolling over and going along with what Eamon Ryan wants all of the time. Such policies such as carbon tax, for instance. Well, one would think the reasonable thing to do in a time of crisis would be to abandon and completely scrap the carbon tax, as the Rural Independent group here has called for. We've been the only group in the Dáil that has consistently called for the carbon tax to be scrapped, and still to see it today, and they're trying to justify keeping it there by saying that the increase is now offset. But it shouldn't be there. In the middle of a crisis, it should never be there. And the carbon tax is not as a result of the war in Ukraine either. That was a government decision, that was government policy. But it is crippling many sectors, such as the haulage sector. It's crippling ordinary motorists and families around this country. And it is disappointing to see that the carbon tax still remains, even in the midst of a huge crisis. Everyone wants to play a part in terms of making our environment better. But what we are saying is it needs to be done in a sensible and contained manner, and not a hysterical overreaction, or not indoctrination of second level children in our schools either, where this is being shoved down their throats. It's like the green medicine is being shoved down all of our throats, whether we want to take it or not. And I believe that that's fundamentally wrong.
First and foremost, this budget reminds me of a bucket without an ass in it. It's been leaking for the last, I suppose, last week or 2 weeks, you know, and by the time it gets to the Dáil now, everybody knows before we go into the Dáil all the good stories. But somebody has to look at there's a negative in a budget too, you know, and while I would, always welcome a positive, my worry is that this budget is not going to turn things around. They're talking about 3 electricity rebates of about 200 a pop, one before Christmas. People are down thousands already, never mind 600 in total in 12 months. They're talking about praising themselves that they're going to leave the hospitality and the tourism rate at 9%, but they don't tell us the real facts. The real facts after February is that it's going up to 13.5%. A lot of the hotels sector in my own area in West Cork will be severely affected by that. They didn't jump on the bandwagon and charge people excessive amounts to stay in their hotels. They still charge the same amount as they ever did, and they're struggling at the moment with the energy rates. Fuel is the biggest problem, and if fuel isn't tackled, we're in trouble. And this government don't see the grasp that. They're saying the diesel is coming down by 16 cent a litre, which is great news, but the carbon tax is putting it back up on the 12th of October. So bang, you get taken in one hand, and we'll give it one and we'll pull it out and put it into our back pocket in the other.
Just before yourself, we were speaking to the president of the Irish Farming Association, Tim Cullinan, and we were asking him, does he think it makes sense that the government is putting up the carbon tax, but then they're giving people all of these energy rebates and so on, that it almost undoes what they're just after doing, and it kind of nullifies the same policy. It almost seems superfluous. And he was saying that, you know, as long as people are able to pay their bills, he didn't have a big problem with it, and that we do have to worry about carbon in the atmosphere and so on. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think he's wrong there, because he should be more protective of Irish agriculture and Irish farmers. Tim Cullinan should be. Carbon tax is a complete and utter robbery. It's all it is of the people of rural Ireland, and let there be no doubt about it. And every farm leader should come out strong against it, because it's taking out of the pockets of the people of rural Ireland, and it's attacking the ordinary good citizens of rural Ireland to pay for pet projects for Eamon Ryan and his buddies. And that's what's happening out there. Pet projects are being funded out of this 4 electric buses, was it costing us 2-point-something million. These little hairy-fairy little projects where people in rural Ireland are absolutely riddled with taxes, because they're travelling, because they have the fuel, huge expenses, and the same with farmers, with agriculture, same with fishermen. So like that carbon tax was only one tax, and that was the tax that people in rural Ireland, and I'm a bit disappointed Tim Cullinan has chosen not to attack that tax, because it has to happen. And I mean, the farming community are getting absolutely riddled. The farmers are out there, the contractors are telling me it's costing them thousands and thousands more this year, so that must be passed on to the farmers. So it must be initially it lands up on the shelf as being more expense to the people out there.
And I'm very disappointed, look, that the government have done nothing to stop the electricity companies of raising the cost of electricity. We know they're going to increase it again from the 1st of October on, and like, it's a lack of control by the government, and they seem to be happy to take it on the one hand. They're getting more VAT and everything from the increased electricity charges, and they're saying they're going to give it back to us. But why let them take it in the first place?